You can jump up. And then raise your hands if you have a hot headline that you want to share, as always. And welcome back. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Wednesday evening to everyone in Asia, Wednesday afternoon, everyone in Europe, and a very good morning to everybody waking up across the Americas. And here's your very biggest headline at this very moment on Wednesday, August 11th. Starting with the big news first that all your cousins and coworkers are reading about. And the top one is a story about Instagram, which introduces anti-hate speech tools to let users limit comments and requests on popular posts following abuse towards England soccer players. Instagram has introduced new features called the limits and hidden words designed to reduce hate and abuse on trending posts, the company announced. Where on Instagram's, a lot of places are reporting this, including and Instagram's boss is even tweeting this out, where he's tweeted out where he says, "We're rolling out hidden words to everyone globally by the end of this month. When it's on, it'll automatically filter DM requests with offensive words, phrases, and emojis, so you never have to see them. We already show a warning when someone tries to post a potentially hurtful comment. If they try to post it again, we show a stronger warning saying we may remove it if they post. Now we'll show the stronger message the first time rather than waiting multiple times. Today, we're announcing 3 updates to protect people from racism and abuse on Instagram. We don't allow hate speech or bullying on our platform. And we hope these new tools will help protect people from having to experience abuse. Limits is a feature that lets you hide comments and DMs from people who don't follow you, or who only just followed you, like recently. It's intended to prevent harassment, especially towards creators and public figures during spikes of abuse." And on their blog, it basically says the same thing. And I'm tweeting out their blog post that Instagram put out moments ago about their new update to reduce hate speech and harassment on Instagram. And the announcement is new features to help protect people from abuse, the ability for people to limit comments and DM requests during spikes of increased attention, stronger warnings when people try to post potentially offensive comments or emojis, and the global rollout of our hidden words feature, which allows people to filter abusive DM requests. Yeah, this may go odd. So when you try to post something that the algorithm thinks might be offensive, you now get a pop-up that before the post goes live that says, "This may go against our guidelines. This content may contain racist language or other content that goes against our guidelines. If you post this comment anyway, it may be hidden from other people. If your comments repeatedly go against our guidelines, your account may be deleted." There you go. Okay, that's the top story. Next big story is from the New York Times. It says, "A look at the multi-year effort by English soccer organizations to push Facebook to crack down on hate speech against players, intensifying during Euro 2020. For more than 2 years, soccer officials pushed Facebook to limit the hate speech. As the new season begins, the hate continues, and so they got to come up ways to combat that, of course." So kind of a sub-related headline to the top headline. So the number 2 big headline is a group behind Poly Network, a cross-chain protocol used for DeFi applications, says a hacker has stolen $611 million worth of a cryptocurrency. One researcher blames the attack on a crypto flaw. Cross-chain protocol Poly Network has been hacked for $611 million. And it got a whole lot of buzz today. And here's another related headline that the attacker who stole $611 million from Poly Network starts returning the money. Now,
we had some love notes back and forth, Tyler. Not me per se, but the hacker and the community. And so he's returning the money.
It says now 4 million plus in USDC, BTCB, and Shibas and others after saying they were ready to surrender. And can you give us an insight into here Poly Network themselves say, so far we've received a total of value of 4.75 million in assets returned by the hacker. With Ethereum of 2.6 million and etc. And then the hacker failed to contact Polly. I need a secured multi-sig wallet from you so that they can return funds. Very interesting. Do you have some insight on the communication as to the of what would
Yeah,
lead them to
I have
return
to,
it?
I have to pull it up. They had some, like actually letters, like, not letters, but it looked like a letter,
Mm-hmm.
back and forth to one another. So, but I'll have to pull them up.
Okay.
It's
I just found the article. I'm retweeting it to the Twitter account now for those who want to see it, where it says the attacker starts returning the 611 million in stolen cryptocurrency. The move came less than a day since the attacker's ID information was reportedly obtained by blockchain security firm Slumis. Okay, well that would explain why they're starting to return it if they feel they can be identified. And for credit where it's due, our friend Amay, who when we spoke about this 6 hours ago, predicted this. She said she believes they will turn themselves in, essentially, or return the money, and indeed that's what's happening. So kudos to Amay for a correct prediction on this one. The biggest decentralized finance hack so far, and 7 minutes prior to sending the first transaction, returning some of the funds, the hacker created a token called "The Hacker is Ready to Surrender" and sent this token to the designated Polygon address. Okay.
But I'm curious,
Hmm.
but for first doing something bad and then they return the money, is that still a crime? I mean, that's still a crime,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So they will still have to face some. Well, there will still be legal implications on them, right? I'm not sure whether
Sure.
because it's not a regulated space, so I don't know what kind of laws apply to them. But does the normal law apply to them, like for stealing things, like stealing a bank and then
Not
returning
if
the
they're
money
in
to
Moldova. There's no extradition. There's no way of getting them to
This is so
face.
crazy. This
Yeah.
world is getting crazy. My God.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks very reminiscent, of the 2017, 2016 DAO hack. Again, you had some centralized mechanism by which to find out more about it. Binance was it. So it's all super kind of deja vu, but at the same time, I mean, Cheryl's right. There's not a law per se, but the guy can always say, I was showing you that that there was a flaw in the smart contract and I could exploit it.
Mm-hmm. So
And here I am, I'm returning you all the money, and maybe it'll give us a little interest for having played around with it and in the yield farming.
So there's the next big headline, which is based on amount of Twitter activity, essentially, is about a live stream on YouTube for the Samsung's Galaxy Unpacked event, where the new Galaxy Z Fold 3, Z Flip 3, and Watch 4 are expected. It's ongoing now with 166,000 people watching the live stream. It started streaming over an hour ago, and now they're at the point where they're showing the watch. And so they just revealed the foldable phones, essentially, where it looks like an iPhone, and then you fold it open like a book, and now the screen's twice as big. So the Apple, by the way, is expected to have their flagship phone announcement in almost exactly a month from now, and we expect them to announce the date any day, like in the next week, when that will happen. And whenever it happens, it'll almost certainly be a Tuesday and at 10 a.m. Pacific, as they traditionally are. And it will almost certainly be virtual, although they'll have some number. Perhaps they might have some journalists in the audience, although I doubt it now. With San Francisco has very high cases of Delta at the moment, so it'll probably be virtual.
So they're already saying, Tyler, is September 7th or September 14th.
7th or 14th?
Yeah, that's right.
Which are those Tuesdays?
They're both Tuesdays, yes.
Yeah, and it'll be at 10 a.m. as usual. Apple's pretty dependable with their kind of repetitive nature of things. And that's kind of obvious. If you know that Apple always does them on Tuesdays in the first half of September, then yes, it'll either be the 7th or the 14th. So hardly a surprise. And also with its start time of 10 a.m. So we'll watch it live because it'll dovetail nicely with the end of Tech News, like we did last time they did one of these. They're fun to watch. Incredible. I almost prefer that it's a virtual event, because when they do them virtually, like they did WWDC, boy, do they put in tremendous production value into these, virtual live stream events with the camera angles and the drone footage. It's breathtaking if you're like a cinematographer or, film producer. It's really groundbreaking stuff, what they do, a mix of computer CGI and drone footage. It's truly remarkable edits that they do in those videos. So the next big headline at the moment is Facebook says it has removed a network of accounts from Russia linked to a UK marketing firm that pushed anti-vaccine content. And we covered this in real time a month ago, when people in YouTube influencers in France and Germany and Belgium started getting really strange offers for $2,000 to start spreading misinformation that Pfizer was killing people 3 times faster than any other vaccine. Really strange stuff. One individual who received such an offer happened to have a background in journalism and knew how exactly bizarre this is. Who on earth would be paying $2,000 to spread misinformation about vaccines? What kind of PR agency would ever get involved in anything like this? And the answer is none. No reputable PR company would ever touch anything like that. And this person had a background in journalism and PR and realized the truly bizarre nature of this, called MI6 in London. They started investigating. They found out the Russian ties, and now Facebook says it has removed a network of accounts of Russian-linked UK marketing firm. And this marketing firm said that they were from London, but it turned out when MI6 got involved that it was an associate of Vladimir Putin who was behind this whole shady endeavor. And here we are. So that's kind of the backstory to that headline. The next headline is the Washington Post says they have court documents saying that Apple has settled a lawsuit against a company called Corellium over their virtualized iPhone business. Corellium says it still sells its virtual iOS devices, and Apple's kind of withdrawing its lawsuit. And this company basically just makes it possible for people to run virtual iPhones on their laptop to test their software on a virtual iPhone rather than testing it on an actual iPhone. It saves you a lot of time and energy as an app developer to test your apps on a virtual iPhone on your laptop rather than on an actual iPhone. So it's not really infringing on Apple's, it's debatable. I can understand why it went to court, and I can understand why Apple settled it without, in this dropping the issue. So next headline is NextGov says they have sources that the NSA awarded a secret cloud computing contract worth up to $10 billion to Amazon Web Services, which is Amazon's cloud. Microsoft, as always, has filed a bid protest with the regulator because that's too much money to just let your competitor win that contract. So we gotta protest it and take it to court and see if it's fully legal. Because, well, in fairness, because Microsoft had won a similar contract for a similar amount, and Amazon did the same to them. So it's a bit of tit for tat going on there when you get into those huge $10 billion contracts. I can't say I wouldn't do the same for $10 billion. So that's a whole lot of cheesecake. The next headline is CNBC. Coinbase reports their Q2 revenues of $2.2 billion. And the market street estimate was they were going to report 1.7 billion. So a notable increase above what the market thought, and a nearly 4,900% year over year increase following volatile stretch of cryptocurrency trading, because they make money on volatility, which means lots of trading activity, which there has been. And that's why they've had a huge, tremendous, nearly 5x increase over the past year. Sorry, 50x, 5,000%. That's a 50x increase. That's tremendous. But a lot of that attention probably came because they IPO'd in the last 12 months, and just the market visibility of Coinbase, became mainstream. And so, yeah, when you do one of the world's biggest IPOs of all time, you get a whole lot of free marketing value out of that. Yeah, you could see a 50x increase in transactions due to mass mainstream as a result of doing the IPO. One of the advantages of doing a very high profile IPO. The next headline is about iOS 15, which will almost absolutely certainly be released on the day of the Apple keynote event, which will either be September 7th or 14th. That's very often when they go live with them. And they'll make the announcement, iOS 15 goes live today, and they'll say it on stage. Tim Cook himself will say it on stage. And so iOS 15 is coming in less than a month now. And internal iOS 15 code and animations show now that Apple will let users link their AirPods to the Find My network. The headphones will use Bluetooth to show their location. So now you'll be much more able to find your AirPods. And what would be amazing is if they connected that to the AR capabilities inside of the phone, so that you could hold up your phone in camera mode, and you could move your phone like a window, and it could tell you where your AirPods are hiding behind your couch in an AR view. That would be fantastic. Instead of just the overhead map view. Is Michael Simpson jumping in here? Where's Mike?
Hey, what up, bro?
Hello, brother. We were just talking
Hi.
about the Apple
Subway.
big annual. We were just talking about tuna, of course, in Subway.
Yeah. And Tyler,
And-
can you bring Dr. Danish up?
Sure. And then we were talking about the Apple event is now going to be either September 7th or 14th, because that's the Tuesdays in early September for the big iPhone launch event. And now people are looking at the code of iOS 15 in the beta versions. Are you running the beta version, Michael, thus far?
Unfortunately, because of the project I'm working on right now, I can't be in a beta.
Yeah. So the developers are getting beta versions as we always do leading up to the event. And so you can see the beta code, and in the beta code, there's new revelations each time they come up with a new version of the beta. And it was the last version of the beta, which I think was beta 3, where we noticed the image scanning of the child abuse stuff. And that's kicked off this huge brouhaha about Apple doing that. And now the newest beta that just came out, people are noticing in the code and animations show that Apple will let users link their AirPods to the Find My network, and the headphones will use Bluetooth to show the location of your AirPods. Fantastic. So it'll be much easier to find your AirPods. And I'm looking
I love the window idea that you were just talking about. That would be great. Like just kind of an almost X-ray through your couch or wherever.
Totally. Yeah. Why not? If it's
Tyler,
working. Yes.
remember the patent that I shared last time where they're actually working on this, where you're able to find your things using AR?
Yes. Yeah. So they have a patent for that, and it's a superior experience. I mean, it's just more useful view, and that's why Google Maps is starting to add AR view when you're walking around town to find the Starbucks or whatever it is you were looking for. Turn right here and go up this escalator, and inside of airports, inside of shopping malls, multi-level areas and whatnot. And that's being driven by the team in Tokyo, which makes perfect sense because Tokyo is a very multi-layered city where doing traditional Google Maps is kind of pointless in a city where everything is, 10 stories deep. True. What's the point of a regular, bird eye view map? It's like, I don't know what floor you're talking. What do you mean turn right? I'm on floor 5. Are you talking about floor 7? Like, so, you need that Z factor in 3-dimensional navigation, which AR can do, which 2D view map, bird eye view maps cannot really do. So the next big headline is that Microsoft fixes 44 vulnerabilities. Yes, they've got that many vulnerabilities and thousands more to go, including 7 flaws that are classified as critical. Yes, 7 of them critical. And this is just July, this is just August. This is like a monthly thing for Microsoft.
Is this in super duper safety mode or?
And they just launched what they're calling for their Edge browser super duper safety mode, as if that gives some reassurance. And so the 7 flaws that are classified as critical, and 3 zero-day flaws, which means vulnerabilities where people could take over your device without you ever knowing it. With 1 actively exploited in the wild. Oh, great! So, holy cow! That means it's an actively exploited known exploit that people were using.
One of the things they patched is the print spooler, which has been around like 40 years. So you have to wonder how long that one's been compromised.
Microsoft will now require admin. Here's that
very
headline
long,
you were
I can
talking
say.
about, Chris. The way they phrased it was Microsoft now requires admin rights before Windows users can access the point and print feature to mitigate a security flaw it has already tried to patch and has known about for a very long time. And they figured, you know what, fuck it, we'll just only admins can have access to that. So there's one way to fix it.
Yeah,
Oh,
the thing is
Microsoft.
here, I can actually give a bit of background story to that one, because this has been a known
Let's do
exploit.
a short background story to that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is here that this has been a known hardware problem with Windows machines for a very, very, very long time. I actually have a USB thumb drive. If I can access an online computer that is logged on, so it's not encrypted, and I push this USB key in, it presents itself as a printer, and the printer unlocks the screen immediately to complete the installation of the driver. This has been known for perhaps 10 years. This key is perhaps 10 years old. Yeah, I think it's that. It actually has been flabbergasted, and we have brought it up so many times, and they say that we need to have this plug-and-play feature enabled for the printers. So, yeah, it will get harder to install USB-driven printers in Windows, yes, but this key won't probably work any longer. You are done.
Convenience versus security. So, the next big headline is NFTs blur the line between social and financial capital, and dismissing them is akin to missing the importance of status while analyzing social networks. That's the headline. I will tweet it out now because there's some percentage of the audience who wants to deep dive on everything about NFTs. I understand that. And the subheadline says, analyzing NFTs as social networks using the status as a service framework. The dead followed me across Twitter all weekend. And PT Parker is doing a bunch of tweets about this where he says, everybody in crypto trying to be Andy Warhol, and it seems to me the opportunity looks more like being Hello Kitty. Such a good tweet. So the next big headline is that Facebook open sources Time Card. It's PCI-based timekeeping tool that uses atomic clocks and navigation satellites to keep devices and data centers in sync. The social network giant gives away its hardware and software designs that can keep data centers humming efficiently. Let me tweet that out for you sysadmins who want to take advantage of that. So next one up is OpenAI debuts a private beta of Codex, an API for turning natural language into code of one of over a dozen coding languages. And we saw demonstrations of Python and JavaScript yesterday when we watched it live here in this room. At the conclusion of this room, it's dovetailed perfectly with the launch of their live stream, which was 30 minutes long. And it was really freaking impressive, I have to say. I'm still kind of shook by it. Essentially, it's a GPT front end for coding, where you can tell GPT-3, make me a website that says hello world, and then boom, it makes you a website and says hello world. That used to take coding, of actually writing of code, whether it be everybody's first thing they ever code generally is the HTML of hello world. So everyone that is codes knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it's relatively simple. And HTML is a relatively simple, markup language. And, then you get into more advanced kind of programming languages and more complex programs, and you start writing calculators and, anyway. But with this OpenAI thing, you talk to GPT-3, it knows what you want, and then it writes the code. And they showed examples of this, and we watched it live. And this really, to me, has huge implications in many ways. The one that's of most interesting to me at the moment is how this removes the barriers for young people to start creating things on a computer, either by text input, like a text chat, or even vocally. Because in one of the examples, they did it verbally, and GPT-3 can understand, it can do speech to text. So you don't actually have to type the text if you don't want to. And the example that they gave was, they said, okay, make a web page. Okay, done. Almost as fast as you can say it. And then put a image of a person on the web page. Okay, done. Make the person 50% smaller. Okay, done. Put them at the bottom of the page in a random location. Done. Okay, now put a big rock at the top of the web page. Okay, done. Okay, put it in a random position. Oh, okay, on the top of the screen. And now have the rock slowly fall to the bottom of the screen. And when it reaches the bottom of the screen, have it come back to the top of the screen in a new random location, and run that repeatedly. And then let me move the man at the bottom of the screen with my arrows on my keyboard. Okay, done. And now that rock is falling, and you have to avoid the rock falling from top to bottom by moving the arrows on your keyboard. And now you've made a video game in as much time as it just took me to explain that. So it's nearly as fast as you can tell the computer what to do, it did it. And that's a little video game, especially if you said, okay, now give me 10 different rocks of different sizes, and have them all fall randomly from the top of the screen, and repeat the cycle. And now I'm dodging between 10 rocks. And then they could have said, give the man at the bottom of the screen a gun to shoot up to, and if the bullet from the gun hits the rock, make the rock disappear. And now you really have a real video game, and give me 100 points every time I shoot a rock. And if the rock hits the person, kill the person, end of game, start the points over from 0. I'm not even kidding. It was literally that for creating a video game verbally, like truly mind-blowing, because now kids as little as, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 can make video games verbally, even before they can type, just by doing it verbally. And that will, I hope, I have to imagine, will get a whole new massive demographic of people, both young, old, left, right, top, bottom, pink, polka dot, of all stripes, more interested and feel less intimidated by learning, I don't know, JavaScript or Python or whatnot. And that to me is fantastic, because we need that in a world where everyone feels like they can create apps, essentially. Somebody else have a takeaway from the live stream yesterday?
So what was really interesting from just like a non-technical perspective, this is Danish, I was going to say that the API integrations that they did. Because like today, without access to a developer, it's quite challenging for like the average person to do backend API integrations. Like they had that Hello World plus the Bitcoin price being emailed through a Google form through MailChimp.
Yes. And you got that email, right?
Yeah, I got that email. And I was sitting there, I was like, this just happened in 5 seconds.
That was amazing.
And what was really nuts is,
amazing.
So last night I've been working on trying to do the AlphaFolds integration, API integration myself, instead of like having our developers do it, just because I thought it would be fun. And I kid you not, I did the AlphaFolds integration through the Codex beta, which if you guys haven't tried it, you really need to apply for it now.
Yeah.
We already have GPT-3 beta, so it's much faster if you already have it. And I was going to say that I did the AlphaFolds integration next to my full stack. We were sitting down and talking through it, and we did that in less than like 8 minutes. Like we connected we were able to tell, hey, can you find the information, the binding protein for Gleevec? If you guys know Gleevec, it's for chronic myeloid leukemia. Can you find the code for that, the genetic code for the binding position? And can you then go into AlphaFold and show me that Gleevec actually attaches to it? And we were able to work our way back, Tyler. It was nuts. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It changes everything. It changes people like me doing healthcare research, just completely changes our ability to do
for
things.
real. Well, not, yeah. Let me run with that thought just a little further. And you're right. Perhaps even more important than, lowering the boundaries and barriers for a whole new age groups of all kinds to participate. It connects to other third-party apps, and they gave 2 really amazing examples. The one Danish mentioned, which was MailChimp, or any email list, where if you have your email list on MailChimp or SendGrid or any of those competitors, They gave the example of, hey, we're going to do a demo right now using our MailChimp mail list. So if you want to be part of this demo, sign up right now at openai.com/sign up. And you go there and you put in your email address. Okay, great. Now we're ready to start the demo. Hey, OpenAI, send an email to the MailChimp list and tell everybody the price of Bitcoin. Okay, boom, send it, done. Say what? I've sent hundreds of emails through MailChimp. They take a long time. They take about 30 minutes to construct a proper email through MailChimp. And it had to do two things. It had to go on the internet, find the price of Bitcoin, and understand that, and then write the email. And then Donish and I got an email in our inbox a minute later that says, hey, the price of Bitcoin is $41,000, 89, whatever, and change. Holy shit. It worked. And that's, yeah.
For AlphaFolds, what was interesting, I just assumed at the time, Tyler, that they had somehow fed the syntax and the SDK and the API documentation specifically for MailChimp. You know, sometimes when you're doing a demo, you try to make it look more magical than it actually is. You know, you're like,
right.
oh, look at this.
Right.
Tyler, it did not know what AlphaFolds 2's API syntax was. It pulled it from the internet and generated code to put it in.
Right. It's intelligent. It's got like a level of intelligence, more intelligent than a lot of normal people. And the other example they gave was in Microsoft Word, where they put in a poem called the Jabberwocky, a kind of a famous, crazy psychedelic poem, into Microsoft Word. And then they told Microsoft Word, hey, bold the first sentence of every paragraph of this poem or stanza, the first line of each stanza. It's kind of like a paragraph of a poem. And it did it. Boom. They could have said, italicize every other word of this poem. Boom, done. There's no automatic way to normally do that. You have to do that manually normally. But now through this bridge of what's called Codex into other apps, these APIs that, you can now start controlling other apps verbally. And now what's really wild about that is you could tell GPT-3, which has access, you could connect it to, imagine connecting a camera to GPT-3, so it has an eyeball now. Show it an app like something simple and say, hey, watch how I use this app. Now clone this app. Write the code for this app. Or better yet, plug it in with a cable and say, go inside this app, try and get all the code as much as you can. Whatever code you can't do, learn the app, click all the buttons, learn the functionality of this app, and then replicate it. And that app, like Instagram, might be written in Java. And then please write it for me in Python so that there's no intellectual property issues. It's clearly not a direct carbon copy of the code, but it's the app functionality is the same. And the beauty of this is you would no longer have to start from zero on anything. You can tell GPT-3, hey, start with Instagram and then tweak this and this and this and this and this. Because what I really want to build is, Uber for, people with special needs, or Uber for dogs. I want to build Uber for dogs. Okay, great. Go get Uber, duplicate it. Now, consider what features I need to change to address the dog market. Like, for example, add this feature and add this feature and add this feature. And almost in a verbal type way, you could update. Because my point in saying all this is lots and lots of quote unquote innovations and ideas are basically piggybacking on top of existing ideas. And so you can now tell GPT-3, go get the original idea that I'm improving, and now here's the improvements I want to make to it. And it can very likely in the near future do that. So it's truly wild. It's a tremendous demonstration that they gave. Okay. The next big headline at this moment. Yes?
Tyler,
Chris,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
and I didn't want to
Chris,
interrupt you. We got some friends down in the audience that are trying to get up too. And then also the thing I was marveling at, and you talked about the demo, but they were literally asking it things and wondering if it was going to do it too. and you heard the amazement in the developer's voice when it did it. It's like, I wonder if it's going to do it. Oh,
Yeah.
whoa, it did it. You
Yeah.
know, that's real fascination.
Yeah, and that's based on GPT-3, where endlessly people are testing its ability to understand the English, essentially, because in English is a language in which we use pronouns like the word it to mean something we talked about earlier. So in the example of the video game, they said, okay, make a rock. Okay, now move it to the right. Well, what does it mean in that sentence? It means the rock. Okay, but GPT-3 has no problem with inferred pronouns constantly in very complex ones. So when they say make a man at the bottom of the screen, like an image of a man, okay, great. Now move him left or right. And it knew you meant the image of the man rather than the rock. And it just very, very intuitively understands language in a way I dare say, as somebody who's lived in many countries and dealt with a lot of people who, Swedes don't speak English isn't their first language, but it's their second language, and they're really, really good at it. But, Japanese notoriously aren't so great at English, and Thais even less so. And I've lived all over the world, but my GPT-3 speaks English better than most Americans do, honestly. Like the vocabulary, the understanding of grammar is honestly better than most American folks. I'm saying that as a former high school teacher. So it's, and we're not that far from GPT-4. We're like a year and a half away from GPT-4, where, holy cow, is that going to be, it's almost going to be smarter than the vast majority of people in its ability to understand human English conversations. So
a fun game to play, Tyler, is you ask GPT-3 a question, and then you ask a human a question, and then everybody guesses which one's GPT-3. And I can promise you, we played this game internally, and we were all just like, we were always wrong. GPT-3 actually answers questions more like a human than what I would say a developer does, let's say.
There was one fantastic YouTube example where a famous YouTuber told GPT-3, look at all the titles of all the top 100 YouTube videos for the past month, and then suggest new YouTube videos that I should make. And then they made those videos, and they were viral videos.
Holy crap.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Like it does things that just a human cannot do. And that's why they were talking about in advertising, come up with a slogan for this, or, it's going to get really wild very quickly in ways that people feel threatened by, including lawyers, including programmers. In fact, there was a lot of people commenting in the live stream saying, well, why did I bother learning computer programming? In terms of front-end development, it's very challenging. In fact, one person tweeted out this article saying, I love what OpenAI is doing with code generation. It's understandable to feel defensive about something that appears competitive, but ultimately we programmers should be the first to realize everything will be automated. We're on a path towards Siri-like interactions, dynamically writing and running code to accomplish a desired task. Yeah, exactly right. Eventually the skill...
The other part that's kind of amazing is, when you're a programmer, you kind of are bounded by what you can and can't do. So, if you've ever done client work, you have a client come in and says, hey, I want it to do this. And, I want it to do X, Y, Z. And as a programmer, you're like, no, it can't do that. But because of this new tool, you're kind of bringing like a childlike amazement into the development world. So I'm dying to see what kind of cool stuff will pop up now that you're not really bounded by what a programmer knows is possible or very tedious and may or may not want to try.
Yes.
To just like purely like, yeah.
Sometimes they're just too lazy to challenge themselves. So right now they have a competition, so they better be on the toes.
Well, no, what he's referring to is that humans factor in time and difficulty into how to solve a problem. And we will optimize for the least difficult route, which isn't the best route, where the AI isn't not inherently lazy. It will do whatever's the best solution, not
AI
the
is not
easiest.
lazy. I'm saying human is lazy.
I know what you're saying. I'm making the point that humans inherently are lazy. We optimize for efficiency. We optimize for saving time and energy. Computers don't do that. So you're going to get potentially the computer, when you tell it to do X, it's not going to do, what is the easiest, fastest, cheapest way to do this. It might consider what's the best way to do this and do that. So it could be very interesting. So the next...
But I'm very curious. I'm very interested to want to explore that too. But I'm on the wait list. How to actually get the API soon? The Codex?
Yeah,
I
so
signed
for
up
us, it
already.
was easier. So it depends. If you've already had access to GPT-3 through their beta
No?
as an organization, then they're prioritizing those people for the Codex.
Okay.
That's how we got
GPT-3
it.
is scanning all of your tweets to figure out if they want to give it to you, Cheryl.
Yeah, I'm set. I'm signing up for both. I said I'm interested in both. I'm just trying to explore what's going on.
So Zomato reports their quarterly earnings reports. This is the big delivery company out of India, and good for them. Unity does their quarter 2 reports, up 48% year over year, and says it will acquire a remote desktop streaming company called Parsec for $320 million. Unity boasted a massive increase in revenue year over year and has raised its guidance as a result, which means they expect an even better quarter next quarter. And
Hey Tyler, one
yes,
thing about Parsec, I gotta tell you, because we're using it for remote care delivery stuff. And so what Parsec does, which is nuts, is Parsec is actually at the lowest level of code. And so what they did, they used machine code. I'm not even kidding, to actually reduce end-to-end latency. This is a huge issue with 5G. You can make 5G as fast as you want, but if you want to go through the browser, there's a bunch of issues in terms of latency. The whole point with 5G is end-to-end round-trip latency being less than 1 millisecond ideally. So the reason why Unity bought them is because a bunch of people were using it initially for video game streaming from computer to computer. So you could be on your phone and playing a video game at home through Parsec. It was this really cool concept. And so Parsec is now expanded to remote workstations. So you can literally be on your computer at home and be accessing the workstation at work with a latency of less than 10 milliseconds.
Yeah.
So that's games, so Unity is, to play video games, but also to create things. And so like you could be using, because you don't have that kind of bandwidth in your, so, this is kind of speaking to where, in my opinion, where Unity is going, which is, kind of developing a broader work environment. Like I think Unity, since remote work is becoming such a huge deal, Parsec was starting to expand into remote work, and I think that remote development, metaverse development, from different devices, that's where this seems to be
You're
going.
right. Well, in their own tweets, Parsec says, we're thrilled to work hand in hand with Unity 3D to accelerate what we've been building so everyone can work, home, game, and play together from anywhere. More soon. Unity tweets out, Unity is excited to acquire Parsec in the near future. Together, we'll empower creators to work together and leverage high-performance processing from anywhere. Which is right, because you need a desktop computer, or at least a laptop with an M1 to do this kind of 3D rendering stuff. But if you can do things through your phone and it's connected to the laptop, and if they're essentially bound in, over a network connection, you have gigabit Ethernet or whatever, 5G, you can tell it the thing to render on the laptop and come back to the phone, and you're building this massive remote computer entity. It's like the synapses or neurons in the brain all connecting together in it's really amazing. Difficult to verbalize. How you can leverage devices across, as long as they're connected to decent cables, or even wirelessly, as 5G is unfolding. So anyway, the next big headline is, in its first post-IPO results, Deliveroo says its pre-tax loss narrowed. Big whoop. Coinbase amends a claim on its website that USDC is backed 1-to-1 by US dollars after Circle disclosed in July that commercial paper and other assets backed USDC. So what does the amendment say now? Coinbase amends their claim on its website. Oh yeah, they have to do that, because now that it's known that USDC, which is the US digital dollar, or they used to say on their website that USDC is backed 1-to-1 by the US dollar, and now they've learned that it's not, so they had to update the term on their site. Okay, makes sense. Next one sources say that the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, is reviewing Uber's partnership with delivery startup GoPuff and the purchase of alcohol delivery firm Drizzly on anti-competitive grounds. This is a little, at face value, a little strange because the FTC normally gets involved when there's an acquisition or a pending acquisition to find out if it's anti-competitive or monopolistic or whatnot. This is not an acquisition. In fact, it's not even an investment. It's simply a partnership. So why is the FTC concerned about a partnership? This is unusual, unless you're talking like Google partnering with Facebook. Okay, sure, we can understand that. But Uber partnering with a startup most people haven't heard of called GoPuff, and the reason is because of the absolute not I wouldn't even say potential, but the very real potential for these delivery apps like Uber and GoPuff are in a position. It's kind of the last meter. Pardon me. Woo. So that
Bless you.
Thank you. So that the last meter, whoever controls the last meter wins, because they're delivering you the goods. Amazon understood that. That's why they felt like they had to replace FedEx and UPS, and they had to control the last meter delivery, because whoever has the last meter can then steal the customer, because they can put on the box any kind of marketing material, QR code to say, hey, next time you order here. And then whoever controls the order, meaning the first meter or the initial kind of, the order, your intent, whoever you share your intent with that you want to purchase something, they get your money. And whoever gets the money has the power, because they dictate where the purchase happens. And in the short term, GoPuff is purchasing items at 7-Eleven and then bringing them to you. But over time, they're going to realize, why don't we just build our own 7-Eleven on the outside of town in a little cheap warehouse, fill it full of robots to fill the orders 10 times faster, and at 10% less, remove 7-Eleven's margins, and then do those deliveries. And so I think the FTC is starting to realize what I've recently realized, and other people are starting to realize, is just like with Instacart, they are going into supermarkets and taking the orders off the shelves and then sending it to you. And they are in the process of building their own robotically based supermarkets on the outside of town to replace the supermarkets. And that's where the supermarkets, the 7-Elevens, and every mom and pop shop on the planet could in the near future be kind of circumvented, disrupted by these last meter delivery companies. And whoever can, and by the way, it's really going to come down to, when you talk about who those last meter delivery companies are, it's the automated autonomous delivery networks, which is the robotic self-driving vehicles that are going to deliver the stuff to your house. That's who's ultimately going to have the ultimate power in these equations. And that's a hard technology to do. And let's just review for 1 second who's leading that charge. It's Google with Waymo. It's Tesla with their autonomous cars. And Uber was playing in that game quite intensely. And it's now Intel in a partnership with, what is that company called that just got the permits for New York City? I think somebody on stage must remember. Cruise is one. And there's one more with Intel. Intel and an Israeli company and a car company all partnered. And Mobileye is the Israeli company, yeah. But what was the actual car company? Because you need but ultimately you might not need the physical car company, because some people are trying to add an aftermarket add-on to traditional cars, which I have a headline about that coming up in the next 20 minutes.
Is it NIO?
I don't recall. Anyway,
NIO.
That's a Japanese. That's a Chinese company, NIO, electric autonomous car as well. China has their own cars as well. But the point is, pay very close attention to who's leading the autonomous car game, because it's not just autonomous cars. Because whoever delivers the goods, VW is really big in this as well in Germany. Whoever delivers the goods gets the customer. Whoever gets the customer gets the order. Whoever gets the order ends up replacing and circumventing and disrupting and controlling where that order is fulfilled. And now you know why Tesla is in such an amazing position, or anyone, and Google and Amazon's the other with Rivian. So Amazon is doing automated autonomous vehicles as well with Rivian, electrify vehicles, autonomous vehicles. It's wild. It's going to be a wild future, but boy, it's going to be crazy. And not a coincidence that Uber's former co-founder, former CEO is doing cloud kitchens, because that's a huge part also of what's going to be coming to you, in your orders. Anyway, next headline is from Bloomberg. It says research shows semiconductor chip lead times slipped to 20 weeks in July, up by 8 days over June, which was already the longest wait time since 2017. The amount of time it's taking for chip-starved companies to get orders filled has stretched to more than 20 weeks. Next headline is a brand new one just breaking from Bloomberg, which says Upgrade, a digital bank focusing on personal loans and credit cards, raises $105 million at a $3.3 billion valuation. Upgrade, a lending startup that counts former Lending Club executive Renaud Laplanche as a co-founder, raised $105 million in a funding round. Amazon opens up its $1.5 billion 600-acre air hub in northern Kentucky, capable of handling 100 planes and 200 flights per day as it ramps up delivery speeds. They're going big on cutting down delivery times and logistics across the planet. It's truly remarkable, the battle between Amazon and Alibaba to get everything down to 10-minute deliveries in every major city. So, Houston-based Cart.com. This is also breaking news in the last hour or so. A Houston-based company called Cart.com, C-A-R-T, which provides tools to scale e-commerce businesses, raises $100 million, bringing the total to $144 million. Cart.com, a Houston-based company providing end-to-end e-commerce services, brought in its third funding round this year. We're only 8 months into this year, or barely 8 months, 7 months. They've done 3 fundraising rounds. Holy shit! If that doesn't tell you e-commerce is about to take over the planet. Norton LifeLock says that it will merge with Avast in a cash-in stock deal. Who cares? So, in a statement, China signals sweeping regulations of its tech industry will last until at least 2025 to ensure the quote-unquote healthy development of new business models. As if investors weren't already scared shitless. The beatings will continue until 2025. Okay, well, again, you got to admire their transparency. And I do. And I mean that sincerely. Singapore-based Parcel Perform, which offers shipping logistics tools to e-commerce companies, raises $20 million. Predictive sales startup called People.ai raises $100 million from the Mubadala Fund, the sovereign wealth fund from Abu Dhabi, as Faraz will no doubt correct my pronunciation of that sovereign wealth fund. But they're investing $100 million into a predictive sales startup. What is predictive sales? That sounds like a hot topic. That's something I would like to know a lot about, predictive sales. Let's see. The Web Summit, Patty's big tech conference, a tech festival, and arguably Europe's largest tech conference, will return as in-person event in Lisbon in November after being held virtually last year. And Patty tweets out, breaking, Web Summit has been given the full green light and will be happening in person in Lisbon this year, in part because Portugal is rather liberal, been very rather open borderish politically during COVID. And so they're making the decision to be fully open for November. Kind of a ballsy move. It's hard to predict how Delta will be in around Lisbon in November. And I and my other friends who organize the large tech conferences around the world are all scratching our heads about, you can't do that in a big country like America because you have no idea how things will shape up. I can't even predict what it will be like in Sweden kind of keeping me on the sidelines. And
you know what, Tyler?
Yeah.
Maybe you can do it in Phuket.
Right.
If they're fully vaccinated, they can fly in, right?
Yes, you're right. Phuket is they call it the sandbox. They have a very special exemption for one little island out of Thailand's, 1,000+ islands, where it's a little sandbox. You can go into Phuket, and as long as you're double vaccinated. We'll see. Yeah, it's wild. But I think very fortunate for the Web Summit team that Portugal is quite lax when it comes to COVID restrictions of large crowds, because that's an incredibly large crowd, and that could be a tragically huge super spreader event if they're not careful. So no doubt they will be very careful. The next headline is how Parallel Wireless, a New Hampshire-based Open RAN vendor, is leading the charge to turn African mobile operators away from China's Huawei and ZTE. Parallel Wireless, a New Hampshire-based Open RAN vendor. Okay. The next one is a startup called Doximity, a network service for doctors. Reports Q1 revenue. Who cares? No doubt it's huge, up 100% year over year, as all medtech is. Seoul-based Deep Brain AI, maker of customer-facing AI-powered virtual avatars. Customer-facing AI-powered virtual avatars raises $44 million. And a company called Nanix, which digitizes traditional x-rays, has agreed to acquire a Zebra Medical Vision, which makes AI-based tools for radiologists. Did a big deal at $200 million. And other health techs raising a bunch of money. Another HR data company raised a whole bunch of money. Xiaomi announces their big smartphone. Samsung is doing their big smartphone announcement just an hour ago. Xiaomi announced theirs today. They're both trying to get the head start ahead of Apple, which announces their big smartphone on either September 7th or 14th, which we will live stream. And this was an interesting one. And I'll have to say, I'll admit, I didn't know much about Helium until we met, 8 hours ago in this room. But Helium, a P2P 5G wireless network startup, raises $111 million from Andreessen Horowitz, and says it has 116,000 wireless hotspots in 11,000 cities, with 500,000 more backordered, which is true. I looked into this, and this is amazing, this Helium network. And you can go to helium.com and see it, and you can buy a piece of hardware and install it, provide connectivity, and be paid when people use your connectivity through your piece of hardware. And it creates a decentralized network alternative to the big cell companies. Generally, connectivity networks are usually run by, like in America, Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile or Sprint, and in Europe by Orange or what's the huge one out of Spain? I'm having a brain fart. In the Nordics, you have 3 telecom.
Movistar in Spain?
No, I was trying to think of the big telecom company out of Spain.
Telefonica,
thank you. So you have these massive telephone companies who are the big players in providing connectivity in terms of selling you data packages to connect to the internet on your devices. However, there is a new age of devices, which are these IoT devices like dog collars and AirTags and this IoT, smart parking meters, and everything's becoming connected in IoT. Well, the pricing, and even cars like the Teslas are connected to a network, for example, and even Lime scooters, those little electric scooters, and even many e-bike companies, they're connected so that people can, you can know where the bike is, right? The only way you know where the bike is because it's connected, right? If you're trying to find the bike on a map that you want to rent for the next 20 minutes. So everything needs to be connected. The problem is the pricing for you to surf, YouTube or the web is not so terrible in most of the world, but it's a little cost prohibitive for all of these IoT based companies like smart parking meters to constantly be using AT&T or whoever and the big traditional pipes. So Helium comes out, makes a truly decentralized, totally open source hardware, open source software, fully decentralized network of connectivity optimized for IoT first. because the other providers are not optimizing for that. And then now that they've kind of got a really nice foothold in that market, they're now revealing that they're also going into 5G and competing directly for end users for their cell phones. And this is where it's going to get really wild really quickly, because what happens when they start pushing this through, countries where the countries are normally able to call up the internet service providers, which again are the big telephone companies like Telefonica, and say, hey, turn off the pipe. We're having a protest and we don't want word of this getting out. That's the normal order of business in authoritarian regimes, certainly. And what happens when Helium, this decentralized network run by the people, they call it the People's Network, they're not going to be able to turn it off. And that's quite interesting in and of itself. And you, as the person who put up the hardware on it as an antenna, make the money from the people who access it. And it's all done through a coin. And it's really tremendously interesting. It's one of the most interesting things I've seen in quite a long time. And I'm not at all surprised to see that Google and Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures, Fred Wilson, and other incredibly smart investors are backing this. It's tremendous, and not a coincidence that it's one of the co-founders is Sean Fanning, one of the co-founders of Napster, because Napster was also peer-to-peer, circumvented the traditional power structures of distribution, and Helium is very similar. It has a very similar DNA, and that it's peer-to-peer and very disruptive indeed. Gabby, you're unmuted? Okay. So the next headline is that the Senate sends...
Renee is unmuted.
Oh, okay. They both are. That's all right. So the next one is the Senate sends the $1 trillion infrastructure bill to the House. The bill contains controversial cryptocurrency tax provision critics see as too broad. Indeed, it would force anybody doing anything with crypto to comply with the IRS data around who you're doing transactions of value with, so that they can tax you. And that's a 1099 form, and you have to fill out they have to fill out their address and personal details, so that the IRS can tabulate who owes what, based on transfers of value, which they consider anything on these blockchains to be, whether it's an asset or a currency or what have you. So it puts the whole entire American crypto community in a really tight squeeze, and it is going to force some people to relocate, and they will probably have to relocate to a place that doesn't have extradition treaties, because what was John McAfee was on the run because he was being hunted down by the IRS for not paying taxes on crypto-related transactions. And then he was caught in Spain. In Spain, he went to jail. And Spain and America have an extradition treaty, which means America can force Spain to hand over somebody from Spain to America. And America will do the same to Spain. And so America told Spain, arrest John. He's landed on a plane, and they did. He sat in jail. There was a court case. The judge ruled that John needs to go back to America to face the IRS and his, apparently supposed unpaid taxes on crypto-related transactions. And he died the next day in a Spanish jail cell. So if you are a crypto person looking to relocate, I would not recommend Spain necessarily, because that isn't going to help you. The IRS, as John well now knows, will come and find you if you're in Spain and force the Spanish authorities to jail you and send you back to America to face the IRS. And every country will do that, unless any country that has an extradition treaty will do the same, which is basically every country except Chad, South Sudan, Russia, and Moldova. And now you know why Edward Snowden is living in Russia, because they would love for a country to force Edward Snowden back, and any country would force Edward Snowden back except Russia. And that's why he's in Russia, walking around as a more or less free person. So if you're a crypto person and you want to operate under your own name, of course, your other option is to dissolve your company completely, which will be hard to do if you have investors, and start again under a pseudonym like, Satoshi Nakamoto, and run a truly decentralized system, which you could do under a pseudonym anywhere in the world you want. So there was an example that we found earlier today of a company that did pivot to being a fully decentralized, what we call a DAO, a DAO, a decentralized operation. And they showed graphically exactly how they plan to do that for everybody involved, all the kind of stakeholders in their company. So next big headline is that Venmo will let credit card holders automatically buy cryptocurrency with the cash back they earn, and says there will be no associated transaction fees. That's great. And then YouTube launches protections for kids. Default private uploads, turning off autoplay and adding take a break and bedtime reminders by default, which is very bizarre that they're doing something totally antithesis to their ethos of tracking and boosting average viewing times by telling people to take a break. That's just truly bizarre. I just really can't get over that one. I don't think it was their decision. I will go down on the record as saying my conspiracy theory is that this was a request of Washington, D.C., and not a coincidence that this came out the same day as Instagram and Google and Facebook all turning off ads for minors, people under 18, and Apple scanning their own devices and iCloud for child abuse images. All of those moves are all wildly antithetical to their modus operandis as companies that they've been fighting for decades. It's truly bizarre, and even 10 times more bizarre that they're all happening concurrently and simultaneously. Truly bizarre, and that all of those companies are in deep negotiations with Washington, D.C. on an hourly basis at the moment, as they're facing very large anti-monopolistic bills running through, the House and the Senate. I can't imagine that that's a coincidence. But we will find out. So I don't know. This is a conspiracy theory, but we will find out. So Jeremiah, you wanted to jump in on the Google, the headline that they now have a calculator for their team members to figure out how much of a pay cut they will need to take if they decide to work remotely, if I recall correctly. If Jeremiah is still on stage.
Yep, he's not on stage.
He was until a minute ago.
No, he's still in the room, but
Okay.
He's just not on stage.
Oh,
you can invite him again.
Yeah. Jeremiah, if you want to comment on the working from home Google calculator so that people can figure out how much of a pay cut they'll have to take if they decide to go fully remote, feel free to jump up on that one. Let me do the invite. There you go. Let's see if he's around to do that. And then we can get into the really interesting headlines that everyone's been tweeting in over the past several hours here. And let's see what we got. Digging into the stack of crazy headlines at this very moment. The Samsung announcements on their new devices for this year. The Galaxy Z Flip 3 with 120 hertz, which the next iPhone will have as well. The 6.7-inch internal display, identical to the iPro Max, plus a 1.9-inch panel on the other side of the phone, and a Snapdragon 888 starting at $999, shipping August 26th. And the Z Fold 3, which is the folding phone that turns into like a mini tablet, also has 120 hertz, 7.6-inch primary screen, a pen. Also comes out on August 27th for $1,799 because it's a foldable tablet is what it is, and it fits in your pocket. Kind of crazy. Okay, so the really fun headlines that everyone's been sharing are as follows. Cheryl had this one from The Sun in the UK about tires of hell, world's biggest tire graveyard on fire with toxic black smoke seen from space at the burning site, storing 7 million tires all on fire. That's an ocean of used tires on fire. And you can see the footage from Instagram and video footage from The Sun. Truly horrific. And then JT, you've got this one about the Sony patent gives VR headset outward facing screen. Does that ring a bell? JT. Calling JT. Earth to JT.
Yeah, he's there, but he's not on mute.
Where are you, JT? Come on in.
Wake up, JT.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Earth to JT. Come on, JT.
Ground control
It's
to
okay.
Major
We'll circle back to
Tom.
Let us know you're okay, JT.
Thank you, JT.
Okay. We'll have to circle back. So the latest Sony patent gives VR headset outward-facing screen, so that people on the, of course, it's of no use to you to have a screen on the outside of the headset, but it's very helpful to people looking at you to see your eyes. So it doesn't look like, you're a zombie walking around from the future. They can see your eyes, exactly where your eyes would be, and even see which direction you're looking, because you will have a camera on the outside so that you'll be able to walk down the street without bumping into things. And, the image outside of the thing will be projected into your eyes, and now people can see you and you can see them. And now you understand why there's a screen on the outside of the device. Makes sense. Really smart. And then, Cheryl, you had this one about Hong Kong's largest teachers union will be, which has been driving the pro-democracy movement for decades, will now dissolve. Oh, what a surprise. It was the one political group with enough power of, 10,000 plus teachers around Hong Kong. And that's something that a government has a hard time pushing around, because they could say, screw you, we're done, we're out. And then you're kind of in a difficult position on the chessboard. And so quite concerning indeed that the Nikkei Asia...
Not just that, because they are teachers, they can influence their students. So definitely they want them out here.
So now they've just lost all their political power and the union's dissolving, which America would love to do the same, by the way. Because a lot of people believe the teachers' unions are what's holding back, education progress in America. And it's not really easy to do. But China just did it. So it's kind of interesting. So the next headline, also from Cheryl, via Reuters, is that Chile's record-breaking drought makes climate change very easy to see. Indeed, if just take a look at this article to see some mind-blowing, unprecedented drought imagery. And then Panasonic is turning a fuel cell factory in Japan into what could be the world's first hydrogen-based plant powered entirely by renewable energy. And Panasonic and Toyota both, just the Japanese really going into hydrogen for some reason. It seems a little perplexing why they're so focused on hydrogen, to be honest.
It's Tyler, it's really just the ultimate battery. It doesn't have the same waste disposal issues, because once you're done with it, you turn it back into water, or in the process of combusting it, you're forming water. So 20 years ago when I studied this, I kind of realized that this was the ultimate storage for us.
Okay. And let me see here. Larry Kress just sent one in here. So I'm just retweeting all of these now. We're going to go really quickly through many of these. And somebody named Larry sent one in, and then Vinay. You've got this one about data of 3 million elderly citizens exposed in the cloud.
Yeah, Tyler. Really, really interesting. It seems to be there's a hack.
Get closer on your mic if you can.
Is this better now?
Yep.
Yeah. So it really has been a hack where just the elderly medical records, all their pension records have all been hacked and been exposed. Now, we don't know who has access to it, but it's been out there for a while.
Okay. Let me look at the next one here. What do we got? Lawyers for Huawei. The CFO has been being held in Canada. Speaking of extradition treaties, America's telling Canada, hey, send us Huawei's CFO. Huawei's CFO was arrested in Canada at the request of the U.S., and the U.S. is saying, send her to us. And Huawei says, whoa, we need a trial to test this. And so there is a trial. And so lawyers for Huawei CFO made a final push for a Canadian court to reject U.S. extradition request, to which I say, good luck with that. Yeah, Canada's going to do what America tells it to do. And
but one thing, China just
I know, Cheryl.
jail.
I know.
Jail
It's the next headline I'm going to read.
Yeah.
So it's not
just in time.
There's an amazing coincidence happening right now. There's just another headline. Let's see if this is a coincidence. Chinese court sentences Canadian businessman Michael Spavor to 11 years in prison for espionage. Wow. On the same day that China is going to send Huawei's CFO to America for extradition. I wonder if that's a coincidence.
There will be a trade happening very soon.
Well, no, what they needed to do the Canadian one expeditiously to send a signal to Canada where they're deciding this case right now. In the next 24 hours, Canada's going to make a decision in this court case if the Huawei CFO gets sent back to America. So while Canada's in the final 24 hours of this court case, magically, one of their leading businessmen in China gets arrested and sentenced to an 11-year prison sentence for espionage. Sending a little signal to Canada, think very carefully about your decision about sending our Huawei CFO to America. Coincidence? Absolutely coincidence. It's just, why would China do anything like that? They would never do anything like that. So JT sent in this one about Apple has won its 15th granted patent for future entry-level headset for iTunes movies, TV shows, games, and apps. Uses iPhone as main display and content controlled with remote control device. And you can see it right now from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. Thank you, JT. And BB sent in this one from Wall Street Journal that France and Italy both require proof of COVID-19 status for restaurants and bars. Governments in Europe are hoping that the new rules will push more people to get vaccinated and tamp down the spread of the highly contagious Delta. And there's fines. So the French establishments that don't check health passes risk a 1,500 euro fine, equivalent to about $1,763, which can rise to 9,000 euros or $10,000, and a year in prison following the third violation. Ouch. So there's stiff penalties if you're caught not checking. If people are vaccinated for restaurants and bars. And I had a point I wanted to make about this, and it escapes me at this moment. I forgot there was a point I wanted to make about this. Maybe it'll come back to me. Okay, the next one up is from neurosciencenews.com. What happens in the brain when we imagine the future? When we imagine the outcome of future events, two sub-networks of the brain become active. One of the sub-networks focuses on creating the new event, and the other does a whole other process, which might be useful for AIs to figure out, and brain-computer interfaces to figure out and whatnot. So feel free to read that article from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. I just tweeted that out. And then Vinay, what's this new one you're sending in here?
So one of the leading Indian Institute of Technology and
Get closer on your mic again.
Okay.
Are you using AirPods or something? You sound quite far away.
No, I'm using Club Deck. I just installed it today.
Oh, you sound quite far.
Okay. Is this any better?
Not really.
Okay, just go on to someone else.
Okay.
I'll figure it out.
Alrighty. So the next one is workplace of future is more, according to Bloomberg, the future of the workplace is more like Clubhouse than a cubicle. Businesses are trying out different models to merge the best parts of home, coffee shops, and your old office without the commute. And I agree. I think the future workplace is more like Clubhouse. And so someone named Joe sent in this one that Chinese gaming giant NetEase pushes for major overseas growth. with a new battle royale title. A top executive at the Chinese tech giant NetEase lays out the company's plan for growing revenue overseas. And because it doesn't really have a choice, because China clearly thinks that video games are a poison of an opiate of the mind and the masses. And so certainly if you're a Chinese gaming company, it seems like the future growth is going to be overseas. And that's where things get really, really weird, because the Chinese gaming companies like Tencent are becoming the biggest investors in video game development globally. And simultaneously, there's a new rule. Well, that's kind of counterintuitive, because if China sees video games as a poison and drug of the mind, as they said, and poison of the spirit, opiate of the mind, it's not easy to translate Chinese characters into English directly. So that's where there's the a bit of ambiguity about the direct translation. But the point is, I'm sure China has no problem at all. I mean, they probably would prefer that people outside of China play video games all day and all night. And they're probably very glad that their video game companies are growing internationally as much as possible. So it's quite interesting. And also I wonder if we can find the karaoke headline today. China is now cracking down on all music in China, to ban any music that is a quote unquote a threat to the state, including karaoke bars and everything else. And they're very hypersensitive to any kind of songs with even metaphors implying themes about challenging the state's authority.
Now I understand why there's a 24 billion frenzy in the Singapore real estate. All the rich Chinese are buying houses in Singapore now, I think.
Yeah, well, there's going to be, especially from Hong Kong, there's going to be a mass exodus. Well, there's already a mass exodus underway out of Hong Kong. And there's even, I tweeted out, I believe, a video. I did tweet it out like 3 days ago. There was journalists at the Hong Kong airport, where I used to go every month, and they're interviewing everyone leaving, who are doctors and lawyers and who've spent their entire life in Hong Kong. And then many of them are moving to the UK because the UK is giving them a free entry. And they're interviewing them and how sad they are to leave their, beloved city, which Hong Kong is a truly fantastic city. And they're very sad to be leaving. I would take Hong Kong over, any city in the UK any day, no offense. But I don't blame them for leaving. I would likely do the same myself. It's very troubling. And then obviously many of them are going to go to Singapore. Thailand's considering allowing foreign ownership of land now, and if that happens, holy cow, are we going to see an unimaginable push of Chinese money into Thailand? Anyway, yeah, but
okay. You just need 2.5 million Sing dollar to start a company or invest in a company in Singapore to get a PR.
Okay. Oh, to get a permanent residence?
Yeah.
So the Xiaomi, which is a Chinese hardware company, happens to be my favorite hardware company, builds a robot dog to compete with the $75,000 Boston Dynamics Spot robot dog, which we've read headlines about with the New York Police Department using the Boston Dynamics robot dog. Well, the Xiaomi clone costs only $1,500, about 50 times less, so that, it has facial recognition, so it can follow its owner and friends around, and it's being reported that it can do backflips. I'm sure that will impress the kids. And curious to see what other use cases it can have. If we can put GPT-3 into it, it can do it could even program a website for you. So let's see what all it can do.
Yeah, Tyler, can you take a moment to check if somebody else wants to come up? I think Amanda wants to come up on stage.
I already invited Amanda up, and now I'm inviting Evan.
Dr. Francine?
Already invited Dr. Francine.
Great.
Yeah. But it looks like I've clicked the invite.
Amanda have problem coming in, I think.
Yeah, they do. If you might need to exit the room and pop back in. I think they've already tried that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. He DM'd me.
Yeah. I'm not sure why it's not working.
Cheryl, is Santa Marie, thanks for mentioning, all of you, for the discussions about Hong Kong and Singapore. Actually, there's several of my colleagues in Hong Kong that are actually, and we're not jumping ship, but they're supposed to have companies embedded within Hong Kong. But we're certainly looking for those other layers of sort of protection and opportunity within APAC, and Singapore is really, really one of those very welcoming and easy places to form
and Anna Marie,
and
the government subsidized for medtech startup too. Just
yes,
check
no,
the
I'm very, very
SG
familiar.
setup.
I just wanted to say I'll certainly follow up with you on it, but
Yep.
I just wanted to sort of validate that we see it happening even among our like other of the startups within the Hong Kong Science Park. We're all just sort of making sure we've got. Oh gosh, I don't even want to say a plan B because that doesn't sound right, but it's just this kind of something to bolster growth if you're looking 2 and 3 years out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've got a whole bunch of more headlines to jump into here. Researchers use AI to unlock extreme weather mysteries, particularly about these new heavy rains that are causing very tremendous floods that are washing away houses. And now Stanford researchers believe they have a prediction model to give people an extra day or two to know when their house is going to go flying down the river. And that's a very valuable prediction information indeed, kind of like an earthquake prediction or a tsunami prediction. Now you've got mass rains that turn into flood that destroy your neighborhood prediction. Very useful in these. If anyone's been watching the videos out of Germany or North Korea or China, you know exactly what we're talking about. This is going to become a very regular thing. So good that we get these predictive AIs now. Next headline is some shipping containers are single use, making just one trip across the ocean filled with goods. Mod Pools gives them a second life, turning shipping containers into pools, and very beautiful pools at that. Just retweeting that from Fast Company. And thank you to whoever sent that in. And then we've got this one about data of 3 million elderly citizens exposed in cloud security oversight. And this was Vinay's headline about the personal data of more than 3 million U.S. senior citizens was exposed in a security oversight. Researcher securities at Wiz case discovered that a misconfigured Amazon S3 bucket meant that data, including users' surnames, emails, and phone numbers, the data belonged to people marked as leads or potential customers. And Gareth found one and it's an advertisement from a company called RTFKT. And the advert it shows a man and a lady walking through Manhattan or Brooklyn, but it's a metaverse version of Manhattan. And the headline says, become a VR fashion icon with this exclusive avatar clothing. And so this is an advert for virtual clothing for your avatar in the metaverse. But it looks like a real ad for real clothes. So I just tweeted it from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, and we're now seeing ads for virtual clothes for your metaverse avatars. Because, you want to be goddamn stylish when you're up in that metaverse. You don't want to be walking around in Crocs. Who the hell's going to wear Crocs in the metaverse? Come on, people. You want to be wearing something stylish, looking cool with your avatar.
That's actually a huge market, honestly. That's going to be a really big market. That's one of the things that NFTs will end up doing is outsourcing prototyping and creativity. So you'll have brands that are sponsoring particular shops or things like that. And people can create NFTs that are designs of, like, say, shoes or furniture or whatever it is. And as people purchase them, it's already it's like a pre-made market for a company. So they'll be able to go and take those, go to the NFT creator and say, hey, let's make this in the real world and market it, like you get a discount or something like that for all the people who bought the NFTs originally. And it's a way for them to outsource, huge, like, prototyping and creativity and actually getting from the street, like what people want. And I think that's going to actually be a really good business in the future.
Yeah, Fortune just did a profile on an NFT artist named People Pleaser. And the headline is How Crypto Changed My Life. And you can read all about that from the Tech News Twitter account. And then Mahogany just sent in one hours ago about Google Fiber, Earthlink, and others have been able to deliver fiber optic service. And T-Mobile pilots fiber optic service in Manhattan. And so we got that. And then Cheryl, you've got this one about the U.S. must make amends by encouraging constitutional reform to normalize Japan's security posture and help transform that country into a military independent power like Britain and France, argues somebody. This is from Nikkei Japan. It's an opinion piece about the militarization of Japan, which according to its constitution, which the U.S. helped write after World War II, meant that it could only defend itself and be a defensive military, not a kind of offensive military. And interesting thoughts around that. Delta variant and long COVID are the biggest pandemic issues, according to experts. Kind of not a surprise to people who follow us here every day. Singapore plays catch up with Taiwan as semiconductor chip investments soar in Singapore. City-state gains from supply chain diversification drive, but lags Asian peers. And Poppy's got one that Massachusetts startup hopes to move a step closer to commercial fusion. The company, founded by scientists at MIT, has been testing an extremely powerful magnet necessary to generate immense heat. And if you can build enough heat, you can do fusion. And if you can do fusion, by golly, we would fix the energy problem, and it would stop all CO2 production, more or less, and could save the planet and humanity from imminent catastrophe. That would be truly tremendous, although a very long shot indeed. But might as well try. Chris, you had one about polio vaccine. A polio, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see if no, I don't see any of the doctors on here. They're leaving me alone.
Okay. Yeah, the polio vaccine shows immunity protection for young. May explain lack of children getting as sick as alpha. Scientists detect characteristics of the birth of a major challenge to harvesting fusion energy on Earth. Kind of a continuation of that. It's a separate but related to fusion. And we covered the Singapore plays catch-up. World's first magnetized fusion power station to be built in UK. And there's a whole lot of different countries all trying to do fusion energy. And I'm tweeting out several articles. This one from SciTech Daily about science made simple. What is fusion energy science? It's a multidisciplinary field focused on science needed to develop an energy source based on kind of the controlled, power of the sun. And if you do it wrong, well, we all die instantaneously in a big flash. But hopefully we can keep it under control. Boeing 737 MAX, the airplanes that all got grounded because they were inadvertently grounding themselves with passengers on board a little too quickly. And so we realized those were dangerous and grounded all of them. But now Boeing 737 MAX conducts China test flight as U.S. firm seeks end to ban. Test plane takes off from Shanghai's Pudong International Airport with no destination listed. Well, that's concerning. And then Reuters had a headline today, how Sweden became the Silicon Valley of Europe. And what they mean is that Stockholm is the only country with anywhere near the same number of unicorns per capita as Silicon Valley. The two are kind of all in a league in all of their own. We're kind of like a very mini Silicon Valley on a percentage basis. And very flattering article where they interview, friends and notably Sebastian, the CEO of Klarna. And The Guardian has an article about Andrew Cuomo's resignation, how Governor Cuomo went from COVID hero to furious downfall. Well, essentially, he groped somebody. I can save you the whole article there. And then a company named Jerry raises $75 million at a $450 million valuation to build a car ownership super app for Africa. And thank you to Messi for that one. And then we've got this one, the cybersecurity giants Norton LifeLock and Avast merge in an $8.1 billion deal. Okay. And next up is the New York Times with a headline that says, oh no, Bloomberg is reporting. This is wild. I I don't mean to gloat. I don't mean to dance on somebody's grave, but Bloomberg's reporting that the New York Times tech staff are walking out, escalating a union fight. New York Times company employees plan to walk off the job Wednesday. That would be today, and it's now Wednesday morning in America, over what they say are the newspaper publishers' illegal efforts to stymie their unionization campaign. Workers will stage a half-day stoppage, according to News Guild of New York, the affiliate of the Communication Workers of America that the employees seek to join. They say they began discussing a walkout during a Zoom organizing committee meeting Monday after learning that Times management is asking the government to exclude staff such as data and analysis and designers from a forthcoming vote on unionization. They say the company is waging an illegal anti-union campaign, and the New York Times is imploding. And so that just makes it all that more ironic when they try to point out that startups like Gorillas in Berlin are growing so fast that it's a problem, when you yourself are literally imploding. And yet you write articles every day about startups growing so fast that it's a problem, that we need to be concerned that they might be the next WeWork, because they're just making too many billions of dollars and employing 20,000 people in their first year, and you can't even keep a group of 50 journalists food on the table, and you're writing articles critical of a company employing 20,000 people in its first year. Good on you. Well done, New York Times. Fantastic. Kudos. Keep writing those stories of tech companies growing too fast while you fucking implode, you dumb fucks. So, not that I care. Anyway, Qatar Bank asks U.S. court to order Eritrea to pay a $300 million debt. And is Faraz on stage? Because that's who sent this in, and I would love his take on this. Because it seems a little interesting that Qatar is asking the U.S. to force Eritrea to pay a $300 million debt. But I imagine it has something to do with the fact that this debt is based in dollars. Yeah, quite interesting.
I just wonder, is it Qatar or Qatar? I can never remember. Qatar or Qatar?
I've heard both.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And TPG-backed Farm Easy owner mulls a $1 billion Mumbai IPO. So yet another unicorn. And it's another day, another Indian unicorn. BioNTech, the German company who partnered with Pfizer for the Pfizer vaccine, as it's called, is actually the BioNTech vaccine, and Pfizer is kind of the distributor, to give German economy extraordinary boost. Single startup moves entire economy is the headline from Bloomberg. And that's what happens when you come up with a solution to a massive global problem. And global banks unwind lucrative India trades after the Royal Bank of India warning not just tech banks need to play proper too. Not just tech, but banks also need to play according to India's ever tightening rules. Jeff, you got your mic open? Okay. And then Messi.
Wait, I have more information on the Qatar thing if you
go ahead.
Want to talk about it. Yeah, so I was just going to text you a story on it. So they are actually looking to seize overseas assets. That's why they're looking to the U.S. So they got a ruling in the U.K. in 2019, but Eritrea didn't respond, and so now what they're doing is asking a court to enforce their the failure to pay the debt, the breach, and so that the Qatari bank can seize the Eritrean assets overseas, which presumably is in the U.S. So it's about a $200 million debt that Eritrea borrowed from the Qatar National Bank in 2009 and 2010, and then they reneged apparently in May of 2012 after paying about $45 million. So now they're just suing in different jurisdictions in order to try and enforce the judgment that was already made in Qatar. So now they're just trying to get assets all over. So it's basically a collection action.
Okay. All right. So Faraz just DM'd me that Muharram is starting. The Sunnis celebrate it as the start of the Muslim year, and Shiites mourn for 10 days at the killing of the Prophet whole family, which is never completely advertised nor told, but recognized by some of the world's best known theologians as an ultimate sacrifice made by everyone. So he's kind of laying low during this Muslim observance. So the next headline at this moment is Salesforce wants Salesforce Plus, their new thing they're just launching, to be the Netflix of business content, looking to build a home for Dreamforce Online, which is their big annual conference, and extend its general video and content remit by producing more stuff more often. And they built a studio as well at their flagship building, and a whole bunch of new content coming out. That's like a mini Netflix for business, essentially, called Salesforce Plus. And generally free content as well. You don't have to pay to subscribe. And then I liked this article that Faraz found from Bloomberg, which telcos seek killer app to recoup the billions they've spent on 5G networks. About a decade ago, mobile carriers poured billions of dollars into high-speed 4G networks, only to see technology giants such as Apple and Facebook kind of reap all of the financial benefits. And as operators plow even more cash into 5G, they are betting on a futuristic concept in hope of a fair share of returns this time. Telecommunications companies are looking to build a platform based on the metaverse, an idea that inspired Ready Player One, and online games by market darlings such as Roblox. And early stage examples include virtual and augmented reality headsets or glasses that provide immersive experiences. Advanced versions, still years away, pending super fast wireless data speeds, combine multiple technologies like holograms to bring the internet to life, 3D avatars of people, and etc. And the point is, they've invested billions in 5G. We need the right app that's going to bring back that investment, essentially. And I think they're starting to get a little nervous because they spent an awful lot of money. And AR and VR haven't happened yet, but no doubt it's coming soon. Masayoshi-san, who we talked much about here, hardly a day goes by that we don't mention SoftBank and Mr. Son-san, to make personal investments with SoftBank's Vision Fund. And what that means is Masa is the brains behind SoftBank's Vision Fund, or he used to be. He's kind of has a CEO for that now, but he made a statement, and Bloomberg's reporting that Mr. Son said he would begin to make personal investments alongside SoftBank's Vision Fund, a controversial step. Indeed, this is rather unnormal and the question is, why is he doing it? Unless, the first assumption is that there's a worry that SoftBank is losing its it might be in some kind of unstable position, and he's trying to add or assure investors that there's nothing to worry about, and so he's putting his own money behind SoftBank as well. I'm not sure why else he would do it. But people can. I just tweeted out that article from Faraz to the Tech News Twitter account for those who want to see it, and this one. Also from Bloomberg and Faraz, and the headline reads, why Xi Jinping waited years to launch his crackdown on tech and the tech tycoons. So as China investors search for clues about which industries might be next in President Xi's crackdown, they're also pondering another question. Why wait until now? Well, if you follow tech news around the world, you know the answer to that. And it's because it was only relatively recently, about a month ago, that China found out that their birth rate is in rapid decline. And that is an existential threat to the CCP. Internally, has nothing to do with any outside factors. So they have to fix that very quickly indeed. And they can't blame it on, America or anybody else. And they have to fix that immediately, or they're going to be in deep doo-doo. And so they are working to fix it. And that's why they've cracked down on EdTech to remove the cost of having a child, crack down on property costs, getting better housing to have bigger families. They went from a 1-child policy to a 2-child policy to a 3-child policy. They're now adding and subsidizing, giving $700 to people having kids, and then they're cracking down on the price of milk formula for babies, all simultaneously. And that's all you need to know. When you realize all of those things happening simultaneously, this is not just a tech crackdown. This is a crackdown on anything that's declining the birth rate, including video games. And that's why they're reducing video games to 1 hour a day, because when you're playing video games, you're quote unquote isolated.
And the latest one is they want you to reduce your cost of marriage.
Your what?
Reducing the dowry.
Oh, reducing the
dowry.
Oh,
the wedding plans.
Send me that headline.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the costs of getting married in China, and it's not just China, it's all around Asia, is usually one side of the family has to pay the other side. And in Asia, normally the male pays the female's family a dowry for taking their daughter into their family. And so that is a cost of having a family and having marriages. And so if they remove that tradition, it's still very popular throughout Asia. And if they remove that, that would reduce some of the key frictions to people getting married and having kids. Again, another proof point that this fundamentally is all about the birth rate and fixing the birth rate.
And Tyler, I got a call right as you were buttoning up the comment that, Chinese says that video games are like opium. And then you were talking about how they're still willing to export it, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if you kind of zoom back in history, that's what the British did with real opium, right? That British kept feeding opium to the Chinese. So from a perverse perspective, do you think China kind of sees like, hey, if we feed this opium to the children of the rest of the world, we're going to get our way the same way, Britain got their way during that time period?
They're certainly sensitive to having their population addicted to some
addiction. Yes.
Yeah,
but what I mean is that it's actually advantageous for them to have Americans addicted.
Well, they understand how they became victimized by the British, and so they understand how that can be weaponized, how addictive behaviors can be weaponized. Yeah, that's how they lost Hong Kong, by the way, in the Opium Wars, because they were begging and pleading with the British to stop, pushing opium on its people. And Britain said, well, maybe if you gave us Hong Kong. And China said, okay, but only for 100 years. And the guy who signed the contract said, 100 years, that's forever.
Yep, Tyler, I just DM you. The article is from Bloomberg.
Okay,
Why she wants cheaper weddings for China. You can open it.
There it is. What's the date on this?
5 days ago, I think.
Come on. You guys need, how many more articles do we need related to declining birth rate? I think it's abundantly clear to anybody who comes in here every day. Yet, there's the headlines. What's next? What's driving all of this crackdown? Nobody can figure it out. We have no idea what's driving this. Are you fucking kidding me? Anyway, so the next headline is Audi's latest concept car is an electric car that expands and contracts. And it's cool as hell looking. I just tweeted it out. It can change from a sports car to an elegant touring car with the push of a button. And Andreessen-backed 5G blockchain network raises $111 million. Helium, and we talked about this earlier. It's a fantastic new, the People's Network, where people like you and me, anyone can buy hardware, put it up on an antenna. Other people use that connectivity. You get paid for them using that connectivity. The consumer pays Helium. Helium pays you for installing the antenna, for lack of a better word, or installing the hardware. And it's a huge network, global network. And it's really exploding. It's really fascinating with all of the best investors all jumping in. And then here's the one I mentioned briefly before, called Lightning Motors. Lightning eMotors soars on EV deal with a Warren Buffett-backed bus maker. And Lightning eMotors shares surged after the company that electrifies commercial vehicles announced a strategic partnership with Berkshire Hathaway. So now you're seeing aftermarket electrification of buses And you're even seeing aftermarket automation, autonomization, so that the buses are autonomous and self-driving. So now you can have the frame of a bus, electrify it, and then plug in the intelligence so that it's a self-driving electric bus, aftermarket. And that this can be tremendously huge. So the next one is that Google lets parents remove children from image search results. And we talked all about that. And why are they doing that? And also simultaneously, the same day, same announcement from Google, as they're not letting advertisers target children based on their age and sex and geography. At the same time, Facebook's also doing it in the same identical time. What are the odds of that? The odds of that are about 1 in a billion, which makes you wonder, how did that happen? Michelle, I noticed, is in the room. Let's invite Michelle in to see if she might have any thoughts about this wild conspiracy theory as to why Facebook and Google simultaneously have decided not to let advertisers advertise towards children. And YouTube and Instagram and the big tech companies are all coming out with these and Apple is now going to scan your phone for images about child abuse, all simultaneously. And all the big tech companies are all meeting with Washington, D.C. lobbyists and groups, and Joe Biden himself, as the New York Times reported, that one of Biden's chief advisors is talking with Facebook's global chief of policy. And they speak to each other all the time, according to the New York Times, have meetings endlessly all the time. So no doubt America's asking the big tech companies to do some little changes and requests that they would love to see them do that wouldn't be such a huge burden if they could be so nice as to do some of these changes. You know, similar to how India does with Twitter and WeChat and etc. And the danger, it's not that, of course, what they're asking for, nobody objects to on the face value of what the government's asking for, but it's a slippery slope, because then once governments get a taste of forcing tech companies to do what they say, historically that snowball just continues to roll, as people in China very well know. So the next big headline is India's first woman-led unicorn readies its IPO. Called Nykaa, India's top e-commerce site for beauty products, has filed documents to IPO that could make it worth $4 billion. And indeed, once the fintech layer gets laid out over a country, the e-commerce layer comes in, and there's inevitably always a makeup shop in that e-commerce, and that makeup company always does incredibly well because it's usually neglected, and it's usually a lady who knows how to do it. And I love those startups. Anyway, Amazon failing to squelch Shopify's 57% growth is the headline from Forbes. Shopify has consistently beat analysis expectations, as it's likely to keep doing so. With help from the Delta variant, its stock should keep rising. Well, that's fantastic. As everyone knows here, I put $1 million of my own personal money into Shopify when Google did their live streaming event. Or was it Facebook?
How is it performing now for you?
I think it's up 40% since then.
Wow, really?
Something like
Michelle
that.
Michelle is up on stage.
Huh?
Michelle is up on stage.
Thanks. Michelle, are you hearing my wild conspiracy theory about why Facebook and Google and Apple are all simultaneously coming out with policies that are surprisingly uncharacteristic, with kind of limiting children's use of their apps and things like that?
Well, as you know, I can't necessarily comment to any conspiracy.
And to stop right there. Don't say anything else. That's all you had to say.
All I'm going to say is that at least from like our perspective, it's all around making sure we improve the youth experience across our family of apps. So I guess, yeah, there's a coincidence as to timing here.
Sure. Wild coincidence. Okay. So thank you for that. The next big headline from Poppy that says 5 ways the rise of e-commerce has changed the business landscape. As technology improves, there's no doubt that e-commerce is set to evolve even further. These are 5 ways it has changed business. You can read all about it. And then Poppy has this one about plastic waste from e-commerce is flooding the world. In a seminal report titled Amazon's Plastic Problem Revealed, Oceana, a nonprofit ocean advocacy group, puts out the plastic waste from e-commerce is flooding the world. And you can read all about that. And then the changing world of e-commerce, why winning the final mile is crucial. And I've already explained why winning the final mile is crucial, because whoever controls the final mile controls the customer, controls the order, controls where the order is fulfilled, controls the whole sequence of events. It all starts with who actually delivers the product to your doorstep. And that's why the race for autonomous vehicle networks is a $1 trillion race opportunity, which Tesla knows very well, as Google knows very well. And that's why it's not a surprise that the companies leading that autonomous army network race is Amazon, Google, Tesla. And that's not a coincidence that it's Amazon and Google's names are have horses in those races. So the next big headline is fintech firms dominate Saudi startup scene, attracting venture capitalists. Saudi fintech startups raised a record $150 million in the first half of 2021. That's actually an incredibly small number. And Saudi Arabia is just getting started, and they're just laying down the fintech plumbing, which all the other e-commerce will be built on top of. And to raise $150 million in 6 months is actually very small. A lot of startups raise $150 million very regularly. I mean, India's raising 10 times that every 20 minutes. So yeah, they're starting off small, but it's potentially an opportunity. I mean, that's, it'd be interesting to see how e-commerce evolves out of Saudi Arabia. But right now they're doing the fintech. Vietnam e-commerce company called Tiki raised $20 million today. And the funding can help Tiki and its subsidiary Momo explore new growth opportunities beyond Vietnam into Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asia's already done the fintech pipe plumbing to some degree, and that's why this e-commerce company built on top of that fintech plumbing just raised $20 million. And that's why people are very excited about Southeast Asia, because the real big opportunities happen once the fintech plumbing is laid. It's everything like it's built on top of that, which is all of the e-commerce and the delivery and all of that. So that's when you start getting a whole lot of fundraising really quickly. Facebook bans something called Faze over anti-vaccine campaign. This was the Russian firm that we talked about. And they had tried to lure influencers to push false information about AstraZeneca and BioNTech, Pfizer, COVID-19 shots, according to Facebook. And they've now been banned. Okay. And then The Guardian has an article that AI could be used to diagnose dementia. Researchers say AI tool could lead to earlier diagnosis that could improve patients' outcomes. Fantastic. And then we talked about helium and their chart. Don't buy... The New York Post has a headline which says, it's an opinion piece, mind you, saying, don't buy the latest climate change alarmism, which should be a comedy in the comedy section of the paper, but you can read all about that, just tweeting that one out. And
hey, Tyler.
Yes?
Is Dr. Danish still in here?
I don't know where he is.
Up on stage. Oh, anyway, we talked about the one on predicting Alzheimer's, again, getting their breakthrough designation. That's the one you're talking about, right? Previously, yeah. We talked about that yesterday in the health tech room. And just one thing I wanted to add to that. I actually know one of the fractional CFOs that's been part of Altoida for their development stage. And the interesting thing about how they've geared their product is that they are identifying mild cognitive decline, which only has about a 10 to 15% sensitivity for actual Alzheimer's. So, and I don't say that in a negative way, actually. We were sort of weighing the pros and cons of these different sort of predictive analytics yesterday. And I think, frankly, it's a good thing to know if you have mild cognitive decline, even if it doesn't progress to Alzheimer's. But I think we had a lot of discussion about harms and benefits of these sorts of technologies and whether they're going to create sort of undue healthcare utilization or anxiety among those who would use a tool like that and get a positive result, for instance. And then the other thing that got mentioned is about the FDA's breakthrough designation program. Just so you know, because many of us in the med tech space, and if Chris is up here, he probably can speak to this as well. It's actually a really nice pathway for a lot of even established technology innovators kind of want to use it because it smooths the way and makes things a little faster and easier with FDA to get your approvals. But about a year and a half ago, they launched this program that would allow for anyone that got a breakthrough device designation to get automatic 4 years of CMS reimbursement, which is unprecedented, right? So there was this mad scramble, everybody wanting to we need to do breakthrough designation because it can cost millions to get through CMS and get coverage for your product. So that got delayed, just for the good of any of those tech innovators in the room that are following the med tech space. It was supposed to happen in March, but the Biden administration got very concerned about it when CMS said they didn't think that they could handle the glut of new devices that were being approved, and that CMS was suddenly just going to have to be like, oh yeah, we're going to pay for that no matter what it, without doing our own review process. So right now that can has been kicked down the road to December. And it may indeed happen in December, but it may get kicked down the road further. But for innovators, it's a really, really important thing to watch because getting an automatic 4-year reimbursement from CMS is quite amazing.
Yeah, indeed. So let me do a refresh on my Twitter search of all of the top stories. They're all the same as they were. Will let users here's a new one. WhatsApp will let users move their chat history, including photos and voice notes, between iOS and Android devices, starting with the new Galaxy models. And Facebook says it's undertaking a very meaningful pivot, meaning a very strong change in the company, still in its infancy, to change how its ad tools work with a focus on privacy. A very meaningful pivot is underway inside the world's largest social network. Facebook's massive business was built on its ability to track users across the internet. And this meaningful pivot, still in its infancy, to change how its ad tools work with a focus on privacy. Samsung announces $150 Galaxy Buds 2 in lavender with active noise cancellation and similar design to the Galaxy Buds Pro, available August 27th. And Samsung announces the Galaxy Watch 4, starting at $249, powered by Google's Wear OS, which is powered by Samsung. And the rest of the stories are the same. So the next big headline is a story about Microsoft is now protesting after Amazon won the $10 billion NASA cloud or NSA cloud contract. We covered that. And the JRR token cryptocurrency, like the Lord of the Rings token, is almost certainly headed for Mount Doom, is the comical headline from The Verge. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going on the internet. And then Facebook dating is getting audio chats. Audio chats could help with virtual dating. Indeed, you don't have to meet at the cafe. You can have a little room where you can talk to each other, like our friend Akil did here in Tech News Around the World, where he met his now fiancée, who they plan to get married later this year, who's met the love of his life in the audience here in Tech News Around the World. So yeah. Starship Technologies, which deserves a lot of credit, this little Estonian startup, for pioneering this little robot with 6 little wheels. And they're now bringing food delivery robots to 4 more U.S. colleges this year. Starship Technologies, an autonomous delivery service company, announced that it will begin delivery service in 4 additional college campuses this fall. And they're being copied now by a Russian company and Amazon. And the sad fact is, both of them have done identical carbon copies of their little autonomous delivery robot with their very classic signature little cute 6-wheeled autonomous delivery robot, which pulls up to your front door and you open the lid and you take out whatever's inside the robot, you close the lid and it drives off. And it's incredibly adorable and very regrettable that Amazon and this Russian company have made identical clones of it and are now competing against them directly about it. And I'm tweeting it out so that you can see it. So next headline is from Mahogany from the Next Web, which is from Europe, and it's about the AI analysis of prison phone calls may amplify racially biased policing. AI to analyze prison calls could amplify racial biases in policing. U.S. prisoners may soon be subjected to a high-risk application of AI surveillance. A congressional committee is pressing the Department of Justice to explore the federal use of AI-monitored phone calls of prisoners in the U.S. Why this is so interesting is because China obviously rather transparently uses technology to as surveillance of their citizens. And now the U.S., of course, would never do such a thing. However, they're now starting to do it with prisoners. And that's a slippery slope potential that we need to keep a close eye on, because prisoners have less rights than people outside of prison. And the fact that the U.S. is interested in employing this on prisoners is, let's hope they don't love the results of that too much, that they would consider doing it outside of prisons. Just a little warning. The next one is from Radeja via TechCrunch. The headline reads, Signal, the communications app, little chat app, but although with end-to-end encryption, Signal now lets you choose disappearing messages by default for new chats. And you can set the timing of this exploding messages anywhere from 30 seconds to 4 weeks. The encrypted chat app Signal is adding a few new options for users looking to lock down their messages. The app will now allow anyone to turn on default disappearing messages and set the rate of their disappearance. The next one, also from Radeja, it says, Feds dismantle the Blue Origin protests of NASA's SpaceX Lunar Lander Award, where SpaceX won a NASA contract for a whole bunch of money, and then Blue Origin, led by Amazon's Jeff Bezos, is questioning that contract because they want that contract. And it says Blue Origin are still steaming over NASA's decision to award only one contract to SpaceX to build a human landing system for the Artemis program on the moon. Their protest of the decision was recently rejected, and now the Government Accountability Office arguments, which Blue Origin publicly questioned, are available for all to read. Here are a few highlights from the point-by-point takedown of the losing company's complaints. In case you can't quite remember, NASA originally selected the three companies mentioned, SpaceX and Blue Origin and Dynetics, for early funding to conceptualize and propose a lunar landing system that could put boots on the moon in 2024. They suggested the next step would be, if possible, to pick two proposals to move forward with. But when the time for awards rolled out, only SpaceX walked away with the contract. Dynetics and Blue Origin protested the decision separately, but on separate grounds. First, NASA should have awarded two companies as promised, and not doing so is risky and anti-competition. Second, it should have adjusted the terms of the award process when it learned it didn't have much budget to set aside for it. Third, NASA didn't evaluate the proposals fairly, showing a bias to SpaceX and against the others in various ways. And the Government Accountability Office puts all of these concerns to bed in its report, and in the process makes Blue Origin's follow-up complaint that the agency's limited jurisdiction meant it couldn't adequately address the protests look like sour grapes that it is. And
I mean, the proof is that SpaceX is actually launching rockets like every couple days, and these people are just wanting to do it, and I guess execution counts, right? It's idea versus execution. You've got someone out executing. So,
yeah, I think, I can't disagree with that. Okay.
Hey, Tyler, sorry, I'm back now.
Go ahead.
Finally.
Oh, now you sound good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I came back on my phone. Club Deck didn't work for me. By the way, just a very quick thing. One of the audience members just DM'd me that we were discussing about Huawei and the Canadian guy.
Yes.
China just sentenced a Canadian to death for drug smuggling as well. He just DM'd me. He just DM'd me that it was all over China in the local news.
Okay, let me Google.
and I'm trying to find it on. It's there on Global Times, but I'm not able to open it in India. But you guys might want to just Google Canadian sentenced to death in China. It was reported about 15 hours ago.
I'll tell you.
He was convicted to 18 smuggling beginning of the 2000 and had appealed, and during the appeal it was converted to a death sentence. The Guardian has an article about this. I'm on the phone and out of my yard, so I can't find it for you right now.
I'm sure it's just a coincidence. I mean,
Yeah,
It was
Tyler,
sentenced a day ago.
I just DM you. The article is actually on Reuters. My God.
I'm sure this is not China, the CCP, trying to send Canada a warning or a signal. I mean,
this one is another guy, right? It's not the
yeah.
same guy.
I mean, why would China all of a sudden have two separate headlines in the same few hours, 24 hours before Canada is going to make a decision of what to do with, a high-profile Chinese executive? I'm sure that's just a wild coincidence. Just a really, really. I mean, we read headlines like this every day, right? About China doing things with Canadians, arresting them as spies and, sentencing them to death. I mean, we read these all the time, right? I mean, every day. I mean, didn't we in the past 6 months? I mean, how many times have we read headlines like that?
I guess there's probably high-level discussion between the two countries, and probably the Canadian government didn't kind of like agree to do what China wants, and then they just do it like that. This is crazy.
I guess we're going to see Canadian Navy go into the South China Sea next week.
So this guy, Robert, was actually arrested in 2014 for suspected drug smuggling and convicted in 2018.
Right, but he gets sentenced to death 24 hours before a Canadian court.
He was initially sentenced to 15 years in jail, but subsequently condemned to death by court in Dalian in January 2019, a month after Meng was arrested at Vancouver International Airport on a warrant. So initially it was 15 years, and in January 2019, he was sentenced to death 1 month after the lady in Vancouver, the Huawei lady was arrested in Vancouver airport.
Yeah, and just 24 hours ago, the court upheld the death penalty on appeal.
Yes.
So,
This is too coincidental.
Yeah, huge coincidence. What an amazing coincidence. And I'm sure we won't see any other Canadian people in China have any problems at all for the next 24 hours. I'm sure they're all just...
I only know two countries will do this kind of thing, China and North Korea.
I'm sure every Canadian's feeling really super safe in China right now. So the next headline, let's get into these here. Starlink, speaking of SpaceX has this other thing called Starlink, this kind of bringing internet to the whole world. SpaceX has acquired Swarm Technologies, which it claims are the smallest commercially operatable satellites in space and could power all new use cases. Chameleon-like camouflage, according to the BBC, is now being made as the skin for robots. Researchers develop a robot that changes colors in response to the background. Wild, chameleon-skinned robots. I did not see that one coming. Concerning indeed. The Tesla, speaking of Tesla and China, CNBC headline right now, Tesla sold 32,000 Chinese-made vehicles in July. Local sales plunged month over month. Tesla sold 32,000 Chinese-made vehicles in July, including 24,000 for export. The China Passenger Car Association said on Tuesday that local sales are plunging month over month for Tesla. Gee, I wonder if it's because China's boosting their own domestic EV companies now that they have them. And now there's a lot of political pressure against Tesla at the moment, ever since the Shanghai car show, where a lady jumped on top of the car in the middle of the show screaming, "No brakes, no brakes." And then Tesla responded, and then the state mouthpiece publications said that Tesla's response to the woman was incredibly rude. And ever since then, things haven't been going so well for Tesla in China.
So, hey, Tyler, on Elon Musk's Starlink, I've got some news that there's an article that I'm trying to find again that says countries that want to stop Starlink from being there, all they need to do is put a ban on the receivers, because you do need some hardware. And without that hardware, so that hardware will become illegal to own or to import into the country. So that's the only way you can stop Starlink.
Right. And no one's ever brought anything illegal or banned into a country. I mean, I'm here in Thailand, and no one's bringing nothing illegal into here. Let me tell you. I used to live on the border of Mexico and San Diego. I can assure you, no one ever brought anything illegal into America through the Tijuana border. Nothing. Never once.
I mean, the people just walked across with nothing in their hands.
But Vinay, how about helium? How to stop helium?
He doesn't know what helium is, Ro.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
no, I do. I was there when it restarted. Yeah, they'll find a way. I mean, the minute you find a workaround around the government starts finding ways to shut that down. So
that's the reason why I asked about China, but Tyler said apparently there are people using that in China.
There's a ton of it there at the moment, but it's only able to tap into the existing internet at the moment. So they're not that worried about it yet. It's still quite new. So next big headline at the moment is Motional is the name of the company I was looking for, to begin testing autonomous vehicles in Los Angeles as part of California expansion plans. So now we're getting autonomous vehicles in Los Angeles, and that's going to be fun. Parents who raise well-rounded kids never use these 4 phrases, is the headline from CNBC. And that gives us a chance to play our favorite new game, Tech News Jeopardy. What are the 4 phrases that expert parents never use with their smart, well-rounded kids?
Better words.
Stupid.
Let me see.
STFU.
No.
I'm cheating. I read this.
Okay.
So it'll probably be there's no such thing as a mistake or something like that.
No.
There is no silly questions.
That's what Swedish parents tell their kids, anyways. But
you can be anything you want.
Where's your iPhone?
You're a precious snowflake. So the first 4 are: you're addicted to your phone. Good parents never tell their kids they're addicted to their phone.
That's exactly.
You've been playing that game for too long.
Roblox.
Stop sitting around the computer all day. And last but not least, you need to interact with real people. Telling a kid to get off their phone and spend time with real people is a statement that makes no sense to someone who's engaging with more people through their phone than they were when they were off their phone. One of the main
Get off your phone, Tyler.
Yeah, I'm not on my phone. I'm on my laptop. So
computer.
I'm on Club Deck. So
stop playing so many games, Tyler.
Yeah. So now you know how to be a better parent, thanks to CNBC.
Please interact with real people, Tyler.
I just retweeted it out so you can see for yourself. Elon Musk offers SpaceX to make NASA's next spacesuits after a watchdog group says the program to cost $1 billion. And Elon says, $1 billion? I can make spacesuits for a whole lot less than $1 billion, you fucking idiot government agencies. Spending 10 times more than you need to. That's why everyone's in such a shit show with these government agencies. Let a private company come in here and make a 10 times better spacesuit at 1/10 of the price. How's that sound, NASA?
Elon walks in, he's like, I know so-and-so from the garment district. I know so-and-so that can do this. We can do it for cheaper than $1 billion. Let's do it.
And they did. They have their own spacesuits now, which is why he knows how much it costs to make his own spacesuits. Hey, NASA, do you need some spacesuits? Is that what you're trying to say? Because we have them over at SpaceX. Maybe we could sell you some, at a little profit margin, like 10 times the price we pay to make them. And still they'd cost you 1/10 of what you're paying, whatever contractor is charging you 100 times what it costs them to make them. Oh, government bureaucracies. Okay, so the next headline is from Wired via our friend Mahogany, and it says hybrid office tribes are here and they're a problem. The office cliques created by hybrid working could trigger major company culture issues. The office cliques created by hybrid working could trigger major company culture issues, according to Wired. And the New York Police Department had a secret fund for surveillance tools, according to Wired, where the New York Police Department spent at least $159 million since 2007 through a little-known quote-unquote special expenses fund that did not require approval by the city council. Kind of a secret little slush fund, for just, hot dogs and donuts and things, or technologies, whatever. Off the record stuff. Switzerland's Silicon Valley of smell, now it's getting ridiculous, prospers in an age of big data. The pandemic has changed how people want themselves, their clothes, and their homes to smell. Well, now that's kind of interesting. Now that they can't smell at all due to COVID, Switzerland's Silicon Valley of smell smells a whole new opportunity. And Radeja sends this one in from Reuters. The headline reads, Cloud protection firm Own Backup nears $3.3 billion valuation. The U.S.-Israeli cloud data protection firm Own Backup said on Tuesday it raised $240 million in a late-stage funding round to bring its valuation to $3.35 billion. And that helps you realize why there's a shortage of legitimate cybersecurity experts working for the government agencies and the private domain, as was the Bloomberg headline about a week ago. Because if you have the legit skills, you build a startup like this one called Own Backup, which is now worth $3.35 billion. And the legit security experts who built that company are now worth about $500 million each. I don't think your government agency is going to pay them $500 million. And that's why there's a shortage of legit cybersecurity talent working for government. In fact, if there's somebody willing to work for the government agency, they're probably not a legit cybersecurity expert. Because if they were, they would start their own company for billions of dollars. So, just helping you understand, Bloomberg. The Silicon Valley restaurant just hired robot waiters because Silicon Valley labor shortage. Oh boy. People don't want to go back to work as waiters, and now they're being replaced by robots. Good times, everybody. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. So the headline says, from the Rob Report, this Silicon Valley restaurant just hired robot waiters because Silicon Valley, Servy the robot has been promoted to server. Back when I worked in restaurants after college, people could have fairly accused me of being a cold and robotic waiter. I finally found a server more deserving of that title than me. Inside the new Amswell Hotel in Mountain View, California, the California Mediterranean restaurant called Roger opened a pair of 75-pound autonomous robots called Servy on the payroll and one more on the way. The restaurant, located a few miles from Google's headquarters, as well as the NASA Ames Research Center, has used the 41-inch tall robots since it opened a few weeks ago, but to this point doesn't have them interacting with diners. And you can see the article and these incredibly cool looking service robots in the article. There's even a video from the Rob Report. So I'm tweeting this out now to the Tech News Twitter account at TN8TW. I'm also tweeting out this beastly new V8 jet ski is like a supercharged muscle car on the water. And boy, it does look like a huge muscle car of a jet ski, a V8 jet ski. The new Strandcraft V8 Daytona GT jet ski packs a punishing 6.2-liter supercharged V8 engine to help slice through the seas at rapid speeds. And you can see that. Quite amazing indeed. And then here's another electronic muscle car that just got launched called the Azani, India's first ever electronic supercar. Goes up to 700 kilometers on a single charge, sprints from 0 to 100 kilometers per second and 100 kilometers per hour in less than 2 seconds, nearly identical to the new Tesla Model S Plaid edition. And machine learning could identify extremists from their anonymous online posts, is the headline from HS Today. And just tweeting that one out. It says the researchers examined online platforms such as Reddit and 4chan where anonymous extremists post, and now machine learning could help identify extremists. And we already did the hybrid office tribal behaviors. New machine learning algorithm to detect quantum errors. University of Sydney and quantum control startup called Q Control have developed a new way to reduce quantum computing errors using machine learning algorithms. Facebook removes Russian network that targeted influencers to peddle anti-vax messages. We covered that. Twitter image cropping algorithm prefers younger, slimmer faces, and they awarded the person who found this $300 and $500. We covered that. Intel fails to overturn the $2.18 billion patent verdict. And the U.S. judge has rejected Intel's request to set aside a jury verdict ordering the chipmaker to pay VLSI Technologies $2.1 billion. Amazon's to pay shoppers hurt by others' products does not admit liability, but they are going to pay up to $1,000 to people who use faulty products who get injured in the process. The Perseids meteor shower is coming. Here's how to see the celestial wonder meteor shower that's about to appear in the sky, giving fans the celestial spectaculars of one of the biggest treats of the year. And PayPal's Venmo allows credit card holders to buy crypto without fees. Twitter reveals first findings about racist abuse after the Euros final, where they said that most of the people making the racist comments were using non-anonymous accounts. They're actually using their real proper accounts. China withdrew its ambassador from Lithuania. Why would they do that? Well, in a warning on Taiwanese ties, because this is an update to the headline that we read about a week ago that Taiwan set up an office in Lithuania, which the U.S. applauded, and Europe is also applauding. And now that Taiwan has its first kind of European office in Lithuania, and Europe is applauding it, now China is withdrawing its ambassador from Lithuania. You see? And no doubt we'll see a Lithuanian somebody arrested and put in prison for life from Lithuania in the next 24 hours, possibly as well, if they maintain the interesting coincidences with the Canadian arrests happening in the past 24 hours. China recalls its ambassador to Lithuania and demanded that the Baltic nation remove its top diplomat in Beijing over a dispute of the new Taiwanese office in Lithuania. There you go. Next one, UK fintech investments hit new record after a 18 billion euro buying spree. Deals in the first half of the year leave the UK second in the world behind the US as US global fintech investments soared to $100 billion. Holy shit. Amazon agrees to pay shoppers up to $1,000 for defective goods. We covered that. Bitcoin roars back, fueling $100,000 predictions. Back in vogue are calls for the coin to keep rallying again to its all-time highs and beyond. Independent in the UK's headline says loopholes in space debris law might stop humanity from leaving Earth. The laws that keep countries responsible for outer space are out of date and leave the planet at risk, because now that we're launching tens of thousands of satellites each year into space, and there's already some one collision that happened years ago, which led to a whole bunch of space debris. And those thousands of pieces of space debris from those satellites are spinning around low Earth orbit. And if they hit a satellite, any satellite will then explode, turning into thousands of more space debris. And then you have a chain reaction of space debris triggering its endless 3D dominoes of space debris hitting satellites, turning those satellites into space debris. And then they all, within 24 hours, the whole sky is covered in space debris.
We saw the movie, George Clooney.
Yeah.
Gravity.
Yeah.
Actually, that's going to be Starlink's biggest risk. Mm-hmm. Space debris.
Not for them, because they're low Earth orbit, and their satellites, if they break up, will fall back to Earth. It's the higher satellites that the problem is. If you're very close to the atmosphere, it's not as big a problem. That's why they designed the orbit the way they did.
Okay. So the next one, billionaire Mark Cuban.
By the way, Tyler, it's time for the Clean Tech Tech News Climate Room.
Are you ready?
I'll go over and open.
Go ahead and open it. We'll be there. We'll be there shortly. So I got a few more here. Let's just run through these. We did the robot restaurant. We did that, and don't blame the later. Okay. So billionaire Mark Cuban issued a serious Bitcoin and crypto warning. Even as Bitcoin nears $50,000 price is the headline from Forbes. And new tactical ISR satellites provide global persistent support for somebody whose headline is this. Lockheed Martin is addressing the accelerating demand for space-enabled war-fighting capabilities with a new line of satellites. Really wild. Okay, so we will pause there and join again tomorrow. Although we're now going to go over to the green tech. It's called the Clean Tech News. We don't have time to ignore it is the name of the room. Dan, you just heard, Dan Miller's the mod. You'll see me there in just a second. Let's give him just 2 more seconds to open the room. And a huge thank you to everybody for another fun.
It's open.
Okay, so we'll see you over at Clean Tech News.